No, the title you just read was not clickbait. I'm about to explain the entirety of the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 main story in about 52 or so minutes. So why have I made this video? Well, I want to provide a resource to the community. Some people just don't have the time to play through Xenoblade Chronicles 3. This is especially true if a new Xenoblade Chronicles game is about to come out around the time that you're watching this video. You want to play Xenoblade Chronicles 4 when the game comes out so the internet can't spoil you on it, but you don't have the time to play through Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And that's why this video is here. So I can give you the main plot points of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to give you a little refresher. Now, if it isn't blatantly obvious at this point, this video will spoil the entirety of the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 main story. But if you just want to watch a certain chapter of the game, I've made use of the YouTube chapter feature, so if you go down to the description, you can see when I start explaining a chapter and when I end explaining a chapter. But that's enough rambling from me, and I hope you all enjoyed this video and find it informative. Chapter 1, Ouroboros. We start by looking at a group of 4 young kids running to the Queen's celebration, but oddly, once the clock strikes midnight, the world around one of them stops, and suddenly, as they look to the sky, a huge planet begins to overshadow the world, and then a beam of light happens as the 2 planets seemingly collide. We're then taken to a battlefield, with 2 armies fighting against each other. We then learn a few fundamental facts about the world. Firstly, Keves and Agnes are the 2 colossal powers fighting each other. The 2 nations fight not because of land, food, or water, but rather life itself. If you kill your enemies, their life force is inherited by you, filling your flame clock, allowing you to live longer, while the losing side loses their life force, thus killing them off. Funnily enough, the world's name, Aionios, means eternity, but instead of fighting for eternity, they fight to live for another day. We're then introduced to a couple of our main characters, Noah, Lanz, Uni, Riku, and Wamba. Noah then explains that all of them are born to fight. To slay Agnians is their primary goal in life. They then show a past clip where Noah's group is fighting another group in a practice session. They end up losing the battle, which fires Lanz up, causing him to lash out at Yorin, their friend, for the loss. We then come back to the present where Noah is seen offseeing both Kevesi and Agnians, something that no other offseer does. This causes them to miss the transport back home, leading them to walk back. We then go ahead and get our once per game hot tub scene out of the way, where Noah and Uni discuss Lanz pushing himself too hard in battle, due to some deep regret that he holds. The group then heads off to bed before being startled awake as there is an emergency assembly being called in the colony. The assembly lays out the mission straight from the castle. There is a large transport which is full of ether energy passing by the colony. Oddly, however, it doesn't seem to be from Agnian troops. In fact, they're also gunning for the same transport. Their goal is to destroy the transport, so the group immediately sets off for the transport location. We then learn about Homecoming, which Mama is actually only a few months off of. After you finish your 10th term, you get this thing called a Homecoming. The Queen personally sends you off as you dissolve into the ether. It's something that every soldier strives for, but very few ever make it to Homecoming. Most die in battle. Mamba then leaves to go help another group as Noah's group advances towards the location of the transport. Noah's group then arrive at the transport, but are immediately greeted by Agnian forces. They then get into a scuffle with them, but with no clear winner coming out on top. While the stalemate is still happening, the man that was seemingly defending the transport, named Guernica, intervenes and gives Noah and the Agnian troops some brain damage by slamming them to the ground, thus ending their fight against each other. He then questions why they are fighting, and at the start, the group only answers that the other side has taken so much away from them. But then, Noah speaks up and says that the reason that they are fighting is because it is all that they have. It's what they do to stay alive. He then questions why they are fighting and who decided it would be that way. Guernica then tries to tell Noah who it is, but a conveniently timed light pierces through Guernica, knocking him to the ground. The figure who threw it then reveals themselves, holding both Wamba and an Agnian troop whose name is Hacked. After the group refuses to fight each other, the figure then kills both Wamba and Hacked. Uni then has a quick flashback as the figure stands over her, but quickly snaps back to the present, denying that she had ever seen the figure before. The figure then attacks the group while Guernica tries to take it down, but is unsuccessful and nearly dies, but Noah saves him. Both Kevesi and Agnian forces then band together to try to take the figure down, which Guernica called Mobius, but are unsuccessful in their attempts. Then Guernica activates the stone that Noah and the Agnian forces were gunning for, which turns both Noah and the Agnian soldier into one being, Ouroboros. With the power of Ouroboros, they are able to fend off the Mobius and force it to retreat, but not before it can shoot a large red laser into the sky. After this, the group goes over and tends to Guernica, who tells the group that now they are set free. They are no longer bound by the flame clock. He's lived for 60 years, or 60 terms, 6 times longer than they have lived. He then tells them that the group must work together, since Mobius will now hunt them down. He tells them of a refuge called the City that they must go to. After this, he dies and both Noah and the Agnian soldier off-see him. However, the groups still distrust each other, and as such, they both go their separate ways. But not for long, as both groups find that they are not welcome back in their own colony, and rather, they are being hunted down by their colony. This forces them to retreat back to where they met up in the first place. After a bit of discussion, the group realizes that the Mobius they fought had something to do with the odd red irises that their colony mates had. After some more discussion, the group realizes that they must work together and try to make it to the city that Guernica mentioned at Sorma, the land down south. After this, we are formally introduced to the Agnian troops that we fought, whose names are Mio, Senna, and Tyon. They also bring along Manana, the Nopon cook for the colony. After a quick clothing change, the group set up camp for the night. Noah then walks over to Mio and discovers that she only has 3 months left until she will die. She worries about the legacy that she will leave behind, and realizes that Noah also shares those same thoughts. While the group is sleeping, a mysterious person comes along and appears to pick up Guernica's eye patch and leaves the scene. Chapter 2. Mobius. We start with a flashback as it appears that Noah and crew are running as fast as they can to escape Agnian forces, but then are stopped by an Agnian Furanus. The group nearly dies but is saved by a girl named Ethel. She's a legend among the Kavesi, as only in her 3rd term, she had pushed her colony's rank to Silver, the 2nd highest rank a colony can have, which gives her the nickname Silver Coat Ethel. We then are taken to a theater that appears to show the events of Noah and crew's fight against the Mobius. We learn that the name of the Mobius that they had fought was D, and he begins talking to the other Mobius as they discuss the events. Zed then intervenes and talks about regardless if they had stopped the events, it would have eventually happened anyway. Then two figures stand in the darkness and request that Mobius K go somewhere. K obliges, and then the lights go out, and we turn back to our main partner. The group is awakened by Senna and Lance screaming like madmen. Lance and Senna are attempting to link his Ouroboros, but are unsuccessful. While Tyon doubts that they can link his Ouroboros, Noah and Mio suggest that they likely all can. The reason Noah and Mio became Ouroboros was because Noah had a strong emotion of protecting Mio and the group. This then suggests that via a strong emotion, 2 people can interlink into Ouroboros. The group then sets off for Swordmark, but before they go too far, Noah tells the group that they should, if possible, avoid combat against Kevis or Agnes, and if they do have to fight, try not to kill them. While this is happening, Consul K appears at Colony 4, the colony that Ethel commands. It appears that due to some mistake Ethel made, the colony has fallen from silver to dirt, the lowest rank possible. Oddly, it appears that due to some sort of fog, the Consul's vision is heavily obscured. After getting set up, the Consul then requests that Ethel eradicate some vermin for him. While suggesting this, his eye turns red and we cut back to our group once again. We find that they are discussing which route to take through the Forest Desert. Tyon suggests taking the west route. While it is quicker to go west, it would head straight through Agnian territory. While the east route would be much slower and much harder to tread through due to the heat, it is safer since no colonies occupy it. After some discussion, and questioning of Tyon's motive, the group decides to head east. Unfortunately, Mio is not a fan of the heat, and is barely making it along. We then get treated to the classic cutscene.
Yeah, water! Water! Come on, let's go! Yeah!
The group then makes it to the oasis to rest, and while the group swims to cool off, Noah and Tyon talk about annihilation events that appear to destroy a large amount of landmass. The group then moves out, and Noah and Mio talk about how Noah got his blade. We're taken back to a flashback where although every other soldier is able to call their special weapon, Noah is not, and rather uses his physical blade. After losing a fight against another member of the colony, which breaks his blade, he goes to Riku to ask for another one. Riku then suggests that he should use a blade called Lucky 7. It's so powerful that it can slice a Furanus to bits and bits. Noah declines the offer, citing that it is too strong. It is then revealed that Noah can call his blade, but chose not to because he was scared of fighting. Riku then says that is a trait of a hero, and says as long as Noah keeps that feeling, he is worthy of wielding the Lucky 7. Riku then gives the sword to Noah, allowing him to use it as a sheath. So while he does not use it in battle, if it is needed, he can always unsheath it and use it. Sometime later, while the group is walking through the desert, Noah and his group suddenly get ambushed by Colony 4, and Ethel is the commander in control of it. While Noah tries to talk to her and call off the ambush, it does not work. This forces the group to retreat into the caves, and while retreating, they note that Ethel has a red iris, and it seems to be relaying to the troops where their location is. Due to this, the group gets chased throughout the cave and right into Colony 4's trap. This forces them to fight against Ethel, and while Ethel seemingly has them pinned down, she suddenly stops fighting and goes down in pain while holding her red iris. This forces Consul K to step onto the battlefield, and while Noah's group seem to have him pinned down, he transforms. the group then realizes that he was the one controlling the troops using his red iris. Suddenly, he heals from the flame clock, killing all the soldiers in the colony as they attack him. Noah then realizes that they're going to have to destroy the flame clock if they're going to stand a chance. While the group attempts to destroy the flame clock, both Lance and Cinna and Uni and Tyon transform into Ouroboros, saving the group from Consul K's attacks. Alongside the fog obscuring his vision, this allows them to get the upper hand on Consul K, but when they try to destroy the flame clock, it doesn't even harbor a scratch. And then, upon looking at Riku, Noah remembers the Lucky 7, and realizes that perhaps it could slice the flame clock. Noah and Mio go back up in one last-ditch effort, canceling the interlink to allow Noah to use the Lucky 7, and it slices clean through the flame clock, destroying it. After this, the group takes down Consul K, killing him. The group then checks what he looks like, and he looks old and wrinkly just like Guernica. Luckily, even though they destroyed the flame clock, it only temporarily knocked out the colony's members. Noah then prepares to send off the consul due to the essence feeling just like their essences while floating by. This draws some ire from the group, but Mio experiences a flashback while she is talking to another girl. The girl expresses that the Confessi essence is just like theirs, and upon remembering this, she also sends off the consul. Upon seeing Mio, Cinna, Tyon, and Madonna, some of the soldiers draw their weapons against them, due to them being Agnian. However, Ethel commands them to stand down and allows them into the colony. The flame clock burdens the colony no more, but even though they are freed from it, Noah's group is at the center of attention at the colony. After the group finds their barracks, they find out that Mobius and Consul might be one and the same. They realize that they are much more entrenched in this war than they thought. Even though they might be the same, they constantly fight each other. And although the queens of both territories are leaders, they might not have the group's best interests in mind since they're both so closely related to the consuls. We then cut to both of the queens' castles as both queens order attacks on Ouroboros. Chapter 3. Sophronia's. We begin by looking at a younger Tyon getting berated for his attack plans on another colony, with his ally saying it is too cautious and dull. He eventually brings up the strategy to the commander, named Izzard, and the strategist, named Nimue. They approve his plan, but then we're taken to a battlefield where, due to a smoke bomb, Agnian forces are getting picked off in an ambush. Some of the group manages to escape the ambush, but Nimue's group sacrifices themselves to save Tyon. Nimue gives Tyon her special gizmo that tells the time, and then leaves. And much to Tyon's dismay, he has to flee, leaving Nimue to die. We are then taken back to a dark room where Mobius hang out, and the group discuss the failings of K, but then an unnamed Mobius interjects, asking for permission to set off alone. The group gives him permission, and then the scene ends with the lights turning out. After this, we're taken back to Noah's group, and they are talking with Borealis, the second in command in Colony 4. He tells them the story of how the colony's rank fell from silver to dirt. In a fight with her rival, Smoldering Kamaravi, she has an opportunity to kill him, but does not kill him. Ethel then joins and tells the rest of the story, saying that it became a huge scandal, which led to the castle demoting them to dirt. She strives for one more fight against Kamaravi before she dies, saying that it gives her purpose in her life. Ethel then discusses the potential routes that the group could take to Swordmark. Cutting straight through the sea is not an option due to the high winds and waves ripping apart anything it comes across. This leaves the northern and southern route around it, and the northern route is a no-go due to it running right through Agnes Castle territory. The group must take the southern route, which would take about 2 months, leaving Mia with only 1 month left in her lifespan. To make matters worse, it is unlikely that the city is even at Swordmark, due to nothing being there when Ethel had to drive through the territory. Regardless, the group still sets its sights upon making it to Swordmark. Before winding down for the night, Mio and Cinna grab something to eat from the canteen, but are met by an aggravated soldier, showing the group a keepsake his friend used to have before dying in a fight against the Agnians. He blames them, calling them animals. Mio then dares him to shoot her, but he declines since Mio has only 3 months left. Mio then talks about even though they didn't kill his friend, they killed many others. She hopes that they can make amends now and that they don't have to kill to live. Luckily, not everyone is mean in the colony, as the cook gives them food on the house, and thanks them for allowing him to have the choice not to kill. However, Mio's time is slowly ticking down, and this is having a mental toll on her. She appears to check on her mark every night, as he becomes ever more thinner. Cinna recommends her to take a bath, oblivious of the mental toll her time left is having on her. She obliges, but before going in, takes a look up at the moon, ending the cutscene. While the group is leaving, Ethel also leaves, having to make a report to the castle. The group worries about her well-being, but she assures them that she will be fine, and they should stick to their goal and not let them hold Noah's group back. After a bit of journeying, Noah and Mio stumble upon a group of Armus. They notice that the Armus grow larger and older as time progresses, but since they only live for 10 years, they never grow that old, causing them to not notice the life around them getting older. We then are taken back to the theater where we realize that Mobius is watching Noah's group every last move with a live feed. They discuss the moment Noah and Mio just had, and Zed talks about how an eclipse is drawing near. They zoom in on Mio's mark, but then we're taken back to Noah's group, and they are still discussing the Armus, oblivious of what Mobius are doing. Tyon then notices a large Sophronia tree and reminisces about how Nimue used to always love Sophronia trees, how Nimue meant a lot to him as a mentor. We then are taken to Commander Izzard's room, where he is discussing with the Consul about the soldiers he wants him to destroy, which is Noah's group. Commander Izzard is hesitant to immediately kill them, which leads the Consul to shoot a large beam of light into the room. The group then comes upon an old battlefield and decides to scour for resources. While looking at resources, Uni comes upon an old husk, and after checking the name tag, realizes it has got her name on it. She then flashes back again to the moment where the Mobius-like figure stood over her. After Lance is able to get her attention, Uni looks back at the husk one last time, convincing herself that the husk was someone else, not her. The group then sets up camp, and Uni once again has a nightmare about her dying to the Mobius-like figure. After waking up, Tyon gives her a cup of tea, and the two discuss how one must feel when they're getting near their end, as they look over Mia. Upon waking up the next day, the group decides that they will go through the Orion tunnels to minimize the risk of running into enemies. Unfortunately, little risk doesn't mean completely safe, as the group gets ambushed when they're nearly out of the tunnel. Suddenly, Tyon realizes that it is the same smoke trap that he got caught in so many years ago, and recommends jumping into the river to escape. They escape, but unfortunately it's right into a trap. They're right on Colony Lambda's doorstep, and Commander Izzard attacks the group. Commander Izzard reveals that his strategy was to try to make Tyon give in to despair, reminding him of his past. Commander Izzard uses his Pharaonis to attack the group, but while he does so, suddenly Tyon, Senna, and Mio interlink, revealing their own Ouroboros forms. This allows them to defeat the Pharaonis, destroying the Flame Claw. However, after Commander Izzard steps out of the Pharaonis, he turns into mud. This makes the Consul show up, and he reveals himself to be Yorin. Yorin used to be an old friend of Noah, Uni, and Lance, but he died in a battle against Agnes. However, it turns out that he didn't die on that day, and he turned into Mobius. He reveals his power, which allows him to make mud puppets out of the emotions that he absorbs out of the soldiers. He then attacks the group, but Noah and crew are able to hold out and force him to retreat, but not before we get to see the full context of Yorin saving Lance's life, where he pushes him out of the way of falling rubble, sacrificing himself and giving one last smile before he's crushed. Noah and crew then rush into Colony Lambda to find that although they are all unconscious, everyone is alive. Izzard remembers nothing and asks if he said anything that could have hurt the group. Tyon responds saying that he was his usual self. Izzard then gives Tyon the clock that Nimue had, since Tyon gave it back to Commander Izzard after Nimue died. Tyon accepts the clock, and Izzard tells him to bury it where the Sophronias bloom. Noah and Mio then send off the mud puppet soldiers, which draws ire from Lance. Riku then states what Noah said to him, saying that although they were just mud puppets, they ultimately chose to fight them, and they want to atone for that. Later in the night, Lance seems to be struggling with the fact that Yorin is still alive and he is Mobius. Noah then states that instead of staying in the past, they should look more towards the future and try to figure out why this is all happening. Lance gets even more irritated from this and walks off, but Uni finds him and has a chat with him. She clarifies what Noah was saying. He wasn't asking him to forget, but rather keep moving forward. The two then agree that although it is hard to go through, they must keep pushing on for the betterment of the world, and find out why this is all happening. We then get taken to the side of a battlefield, where Agni and the Kevesi troops are fighting. The Kevesi troops end up getting the victory, and we're taken to the theater where it appears two Mobius are betting on who will win the fights. Zed and another unknown Mobius look upon the two, and the unknown Mobius criticizes them for engaging in vulgar pleasures. However, Zed intervenes and says that to him there is no such thing as luxury, and that the unknown Mobius himself is proof that everything in life buds from a single thought. Chapter 4. Life. We start by being taken to yet another battlefield. It appears that the Agnian troops are getting destroyed, while spoiling Kamaravi watches. However, as the Kevesi troops advance, Kamaravi unleashes his Pharaonis, punishing the overzealous Kevesi troops. Kamaravi, due to this play, wins the fight. We're then taken to what appears to be a jail cell, with Kamaravi inside. The unknown Mobius from earlier comes to speak with him, and as he does, the cutscene ends. Then we're taken to Ethel and Borealis, who have made it to Keves Castle to meet with the Queen. We learn that the unknown Mobius' name is In, the head of the Kevesi consuls. He shows them a device called the Annihilator. It can recreate annihilation events, but they can choose where the annihilation events happen. He shoots at the Orion Mountains, which is right where Noah's group is. They witness a huge, big flash of light, but are unaware that it was due to the Annihilator. We then cut back to the castle where the Annihilator's next target is Colony 4. Meanwhile, Mio appears to be suffering from exhaustion, as she nearly faints. She shrugs it off and says it is fine, but the group shortly after make a camp. The group then discusses the bright light they saw earlier. They discuss Mobius' motives and agree that Mobius are entrenched in this war, that they could potentially be orchestrating the fighting. They agree to keep moving towards the city to look for answers. After a bit of traveling, the group happen upon a forest and scrounge for food. While this is going on, they find a bright fig tree. Unfortunately, they are not ripe for another year. Mio then says that although she can't enjoy the fruit being ripe, they can. This makes Uni and Mio then talk about how Mio feels about her life nearly coming to a close. And although she is outwardly detached about it, she isn't on the inside, but she lives on because of her friend that saved her life so many years ago. Even her off-seer food is a gift from her friend who died saving her. The girl's name, Miyabi, had longer to live than Mio, but still gave up her life for her. Mio then thinks about how her de facto partner, Noah, thinks about things. After finding enough food, suddenly Borealis comes out of nowhere. He tells Noah's group what happened at the castle. As it turns out, the castle threatened the destruction of Colony 4 due to their flame clock being true. In order to save the colony, Ethel, with Kamarabi, must take out Noah's group. Ethel complies, but Borealis is able to escape and warn the group. He tells them that they also know where Noah's group roughly is, which explains how he was able to find them. Alongside their location, Ethel is also able to find the schematics of the Annihilator and gives them to Borealis, who takes the plans back to Colony 4. Upon receiving this information, Noah and the group, instead of gunning it for the city, gun for Kevis Castle to destroy the Annihilator. As the group heads for the castle, they set up camp. Mio's stress level, however, has reached a breaking point. It's starting to affect her as she begins to lose feeling. Unfortunately, Noah is completely oblivious to this, and while Mio is preaching her heart out about how she is upset about only having 2 months left, Noah still does not latch onto that something might be wrong, and Mio snaps at him and then runs away from him. Luckily, God bless her soul, Sin is here and explains to him that Mio isn't perfect, just like the rest of them. Mio's terrified about the thought of dying and tells him that she just needs to vent to him. She then tells him to apologize to her whenever he can, and then runs off to comfort Mio. Upon the sun rising the next day, Mio finds Noah and both apologize for the way they acted. The two then exchange their flutes, since Mio wants Miyabi's old flute to get more usage, even after she dies. Noah then realizes that there are things that the both of them don't know about each other, and the two reach a deeper understanding of each other. Upon reaching near the castle grounds, the group runs into Ethel and Kamarabi, alongside Mobius, O, and P. In the ensuing fight, nobody appears to be getting the upper hand, but then Consul O uses his iris on Kamarabi, forcing him to use all of his strength on Noah's group. But in a turn of events, Kamarabi pokes his eye out, making the Mobius lose all control over them. Then Ethel and Kamarabi engage in a duel, granting the wish of both Ethel and Kamarabi. Unfortunately, the Consuls aren't as big of fans as this, and they drain the life from both Ethel and Kamarabi. Although Noah's group tries to stop them, Ethel prevents them from doing so, killing themselves. After this, Mobius, O, and P revealed that Mobius can also interlink. Unfortunately, they get a bit too overzealous and get a swift right hook from Mio, knocking them back. Mio then yells,
Stop!
Stop?
Stop toying with everyone's lives! What did they ever do to you? Why? All they wanted was their wish to be realized. You turned everything into a game, cast them away like dolls. These are our lives here. They're not some toys you can just play with.
and this motivates the group, as they are able to get the upper hand in the battle. This pushes Mobius, O, and P to the limit, but suddenly they begin to trigger an annihilation event due to interlinking for too long. This would kill everyone in the vicinity, including Noah's group. Luckily, using the Lucky 7, Noah and Mia are able to break the ground underneath O and P, which triggers the annihilation event low enough so the group comes away unscathed. Noah and Mia then send off Kamarabi and Ethel, but notably not Mobius, O, and P. After this, the group discusses what Ethel and Kamarabi were fighting for, and although it seems sad, they all agree that they fought for what they believed in. However, In, Yorin, and D are waiting for Noah's group's arrival, and as such, when they reach the Annihilator, Yorin and D are waiting for them. The two then engage in a scuffle, and unfortunately the group cannot seem to get past the interlinked D and J to destroy the Annihilator, which is about to fire. Part of the problem is, Yumi is absolutely terrified, which is messing with her senses. Mobius D seems to know her and is messing with her emotions. However, the battle gets completely flipped on its head when Mobius D and J fall for a trap, giving Yumi and Tai on the upper hand. Yumi regains her confidence and is able to throw D and J off the edge alongside the Annihilator. However, this somehow doesn't kill D and J, but at the very least, they destroy the Annihilator. Uni then realizes that she remembers who Mobius D is and vows to find out who he is. The group then attempt to get out of the castle, but they get sidetracked by a bunch of cradles in the throne room. In one of the cradles lies Ethel, stunning the group. Unfortunately, they get jumped on by both In and the Queen. Noah then begins to feel strange by looking at In, immobilizing him. And then the Queen begins to attack them. She throws up a barrier, preventing the group from attacking her, but in a stunning turn of events, the Queen begins to malfunction, revealing to the group that she is in fact a robot. And then attempts to attack the group, but suddenly the castle is breached by the lost numbers. They invade the throne room, taking away cradles alongside it. In the chaos, the group is able to escape the castle. After this, In laments about how fate had escaped his grasp again, and takes off his mask, revealing that he looks exactly like Noah. Then a girl comes in, asking what he will do if he is able to capture fate. He responds by saying that he will give them eternity, equilibrium. We then get one look at the girl, and she removes her mask, showing that she looks exactly like Mio. Chapter 5. Eclipse. We begin with another flashback, and we see Senna practicing with her hammer. A group of troops walk up to her and make fun of her. She then looks around to see Mio taking out 5 straight 8th turners, as Senna looks in awe. The two then grab a bite to eat, and Senna orders the same thing as Mio. Mio notices this and tells Senna to be herself. She doesn't have to copy Mio if she doesn't want to. We then cut to Noah's group running from Kevis Castle, as Senna thinks about how she wasn't strong enough in either of the fights they had against Mobius D and J and the Queen. She asks if she did good in the fights, and Lance notices. Lance then recalls the memories he's seen of Senna, where although she is in a crowd of people, she seems so lonely. He asks why this is the case, but Senna deflects the question. Luckily, Kevis Castle is right next to Swordmark, so they make the short walk there. Upon entering the territory, they get jumped suddenly by the same force that attacked the castle. Although they get prepped to fight, the group's leader, Monica, calls off the fight. She reveals herself to be the daughter of Guernica and the leader of the Lost Numbers. She asks all of them to follow her and Shania, a person who helps out in the city. Monica gives them all eye patches, blocking the signal that Mobius was using to track them. Noah questions whether they are Ouroboros, to which Monica responds by saying they are bound by Ouroboros blood. The group then finally makes it to the city, where Monica reveals that they had been tracking the group since the Ouroboros stone activated, and although their actions were reckless, their storming of Kevis Castle helped them grab growth modules. The growth modules turn out to be the cradles that they were birthed in. Each time someone dies in battle, they are rebirthed with no memory of their past life, destined to fight for eternity. But while explaining all this, Monica has used words like daughter and descendant, words that Noah's group doesn't know the meaning of. Upon realizing this, she takes them to the local hospital. It turns out that, lucky for them, a baby had just been born. Monica then shows the group the child, saying that this is how life is truly meant to be.
In her palm.
The group then walks outside and we get some heavy foreshadowing. Okay, she then shows the group the first Ouroboros. Notably, 2 of the 6 founders look exactly like Noah and Mia, and just like the number of founders, only 6 people can become Ouroboros at once. Also, the queens are actually alive, and the figureheads in the castles are phonies, and the city is searching for the true queens, as they hold the power to turn the world back to rights. However, some of the city's members are happy living in the moment, and not freeing the world from Mobius, which leads to conflict within the city. Upon waking the next day, they plot out battle plans. It turns out Gondor, who is jailed in Agnes Castle, has an idea where the true queens are. They don't immediately kill Lost Numbers members upon capturing them. Rather, on one day a year, on an eclipse at Hope's Rest, they execute many of their numbers, which they project high in the sky. With only 1 month left until the eclipse, and the end of Mio's life, the group must hurry to free Gondor. They eventually make it inside the prison camp and find Gondor, who turns out to be a girl with a really strong accent.
Huh? Cut the crap! Any lights on in there, you dead brain?
The group tries to convince her to escape the prison, but she would rather take up a fight, and fights the group. This catches the attention of the guards, which then lock up Noah and crew. Gondor then explains that she doesn't want to break out, because if we attempt to do so, it will likely kill all of the Lost Numbers jailed. This strikes a chord with Mio, as she talks about how she has often seen so many people that wish they had more time, that all they had was fighting. She wants the world to experience what the city had, and instead of destroying what the city has, they want to spread what they have to everyone. This convinces Gondor to help the group out, and she hands off the keys to the Cloud Keep, where the Queen of Agnes sleeps. She then devises a plan. In 3 days, when the security is at their lowest, the group will attempt to escape. The escape goes well initially as they get out of the jailed grounds, but the plan goes awry as it turns out Shania had ratted out the group's escape plans, so Mobius set a trap, and they fell right into it. Both Mobius, Im, and In, who look exactly like Mio and Noah, also show up and pick a fight with the group. Seeing as they are outnumbered and surrounded, Noah hands the Cloud key back to Gondor and tells her group to make a run for it. And although hesitant, Gondor accepts the offer. After their group is able to escape, Noah's group engages onto the Mobius, but Im's special power puts a halt into those plans, as she can control the minds of people, forcing the group to attack each other. Although it seems hopeless, Time realizes that if they attack their allies that are under Im's control, it actually hurts Im. After deploying the strategy, they're able to overcome Im. Unfortunately, Im has been watching on the sidelines this entire time, and he's much more powerful than Im. He absolutely slaughters the group, so much so that even in their Ouroboros forms, they can't take him down. In a last-ditch effort, Senna and Lance attempt to take him high into the air in a suicide mission to kill him, but are thwarted by Mobius X, who brought a stone that sheathed all of Noah's group's weapons, and their Ouroboros forms, rendering them powerless. To make matters worse, although Gondor got away, some of the lost numbers got captured again in the escape. In the debates killing them on the spot, but then decides on setting up a sideshow. He throws the group into Agnes Castle's jail, but notably does not put Mio in the cell with them. When asking what In has planned, In replies that saying in a month, during the eclipse, he will ask the Offseers to see off Mio, killing her. However, unlike those who die in battle, those who are sent off are killed forever, thus meaning that they can't come back in the cradles. Upon hearing this, Noah goes into a fit of rage, but Mio, who is in the cell beside him, tells him to calm down. She has made her peace. She knows that she will live on in others. The group then attempts to break out of jail, but to no avail. During this, the lost numbers attempt to go and save the group, but Monica calls the mission off. But while discussing this, a figure suddenly appears behind them. Someone Monica knows. We then cut back to the jail cell where Noah's group is, and Mio once again speaks to the group. She talks to Senna and tells her to stop being so hard on herself, that what she's giving is enough. She also speaks to Noah, who is beating himself up over not facing the truth, not protecting her. She talks about how everything that they have done had not been for nothing. Enriched her life, and that if she could live another life, she would live it with Noah again. This obviously makes the group cry, and as the days dwindle, the time comes for Mio's off scene. And so, the day comes. Mio, along with the others, are taken up for execution. But they first want the group to witness the off-seeing of Mio. Everyone there is in handcuffs, so they cannot try to save her. Riku recommends calling upon the power of the Lucky Seven, but Noah does not call upon it. Noah then attempts to make one last-ditch effort to save Mio, but is unsuccessful. To really rub salt in the wound, Indin hands Noah his Offseer flute, telling him to play for Mio. Obviously traumatized by this, Noah does not do it, and then when he looks up again, he sees Mio floating into the ether, and she gives one last smile before she drops dead. And then goes up to Noah and draws his sword, and then everything goes black. Chapter 6. Choices. Noah then wakes up in the clouds with a hooded figure. The hooded figure then asks Noah if he could have another shot at making the world right. Would he take the opportunity? They show Noah a couple more of his past lives, but notably, Mio's in each one of these lives as well. They include one where he and the founders found the city, one where they died to Mobius, one where Noah and Mio flee from the city, only to die in the bitter cold, one where Noah and Mio have a child, but they both die before it reaches adulthood, and one where Noah becomes In, alongside Mio becoming Im. After showing him these things, the hood figure then asks if Noah living in the endless now is still his wish, and why he broke off from his other self. Noah then remembers a memory he had. We then flash back to Noah talking to someone named Chris, an important friend of Noah. He asks Noah if he'll continue to move forward, for suddenly, he dies. We cut back to the cloud area, and Noah says that he wanted to know why Chris smiled right before he died. Why Yorn smiled right before he died, and that's why he became an Offseer. He assumed that the smile meant that they pitied the ones they left behind, but now he realizes that they were content with what they accomplished, how it ended. He wants to repay those smiles. He doesn't want the only reason they smiled to be because they were content with how it ended. He wants to rip the world apart if they can only choose such limited paths. The hood figure then asks if he'd set on this road alone, which Noah responds with a yes. After saying this, suddenly Im appears out of nowhere and extends her hand out to Noah, saying that she'd walk this path with him. Suddenly, we're taken out of the clouds and Im has stopped In from executing Noah. She then begins to walk towards him and picks up Mio's Offseer flute. In, being the gentleman that he is, steps back, allowing Im to do whatever she needs to do with him. She then kneels down to Noah and gives him Mio's Offseer flute before saying,
I'm sorry. My hair. It's gotten kinda long. Will you still walk alongside me?
Noah's past month of pain and anguish turns into unbridled joy as the two then hold each other's hands and lift each other up. In then realizes the gravity of the situation as he looks towards M and notices that she has become Ouroboros, not Mobius. He then realizes that if M is Ouroboros, then that means Mio is in M's body, and M was in Mio's body, thus meaning M had just died, not Mio. He then goes into a fit of rage and anguish, but not before Mio intervenes, saying that M couldn't follow him anymore. We then take him back to the battle against M, where before the start, M had a discussion with Mio. She reveals that N's time with her is everything, but she just wants closure, and M. M didn't want to live life anymore, where they gorged on the lives of those that graced the world. She then entrusts Mio and Noah with the hopes and dreams of her, of how M and N should have walked the path that Mio and Noah are walking right now. This confirms that M and N are different versions of Mio and Noah, as Noah's group then realizes the gravity of the situation, realizing that Mio is alive. Mio then says that M's memories were passed on to her, so she could share everything with N, and then Noah steps in, asking why he became a Mobius. How could he harvest those lives when Noah had felt his own child's hands? N then cuts him off, saying that Mio meant everything to him, and now Noah has stolen her away from him. Upon realizing a fight against N is unavoidable, Mio snaps away the handcuffs that held Noah's group hostage, allowing an emotional reunion for the group. Noah and Neo then interlink, catching Mobius X off guard, allowing them to snap the stone that sheathed their weapons. Thanks to this, the group is able to put up a fight against N, and Noah then pulls out the Sword of the N. This angers N, making him attack, saying that he tried to walk the path of Noah and Mio, but Noah then uses his one swear line to say this to him.
You're full of shit! You never tried, you're just a coward! What did you? If you meant it, you'd have found a way, but you didn't even try to make the effort! Did you? So what do you know of the world and of life?
He then cuts through N, greatly wounding him, taking him out of the battle. Mio then tells N why M switched with her, saying that she felt imprisoned, with Mobius shifting lives for control. She wanted to end N's misery. M didn't want forever, she just wanted to spend her days with N. Unfortunately, this doesn't get through to N, and he completely misunderstands the statement. X then realizes that N is greatly wounded and needs to get him out of here. She then calls upon the mechanical Agni and Queen to fight the group, but unfortunately for them, Noah still has the Sword of the End, and they are able to defeat it. X still has one ace up her sleeve, however, as she then calls upon the Agnian City Annihilator, and points it right at the city. Shania has ratted them out again, revealing the location of the city to Mobius. Much to the dismay of the group, they cannot stop the Annihilator as it destroys the city. X and N are then able to flee the battle, and Noah laments about if he had been more careful, he could have saved the city. Lamia tells him not to worry, as then suddenly, city transports appear out of nowhere. Gondor then explains that Mio had warned the city of the plan to destroy it, which allowed them to move the city underneath the ground, avoiding the Annihilator shot. The group then looks upon Shania as she is suddenly in a lot of trouble. She then pulls out her gun, and instead of firing at the group, she shoots herself, killing herself. The group then regroups with Mio, with Noah wondering if he would have been able to save Mio without N's help, and realizes, just like N, he wanted time to stay still so that he could have saved her. Mio then takes his hand, telling him that his efforts to save her were all she needed. She then reveals when M and Mio swapped bodies, at the start of the battle against M. Since then, the two were swapped, and Mio couldn't be suspected, or else she, alongside everyone else in Noah's group, would have been executed on the spot. Mio couldn't afford to be caught, or else N's feelings would have gone to waste. She wanted to give Noah everything she knew about N, so that he could have the will to break the Mobius curse. She then takes the group to Hope's Rest, where the first city was founded, but now is found deep in the sea as wreckage. It turns out, the city was much more successful than its current iteration. When in return for Zed turning N and M into Mobius, he asked N to kill every single resident of the old city to save Mio. This angered M, but N responds that he didn't want to lose any more. He chose to save M rather than save the city. This makes Noah realize that N wasn't necessarily wrong in his choice, he had to choose between two impossible things, but that M left behind what N and M's intentions were and passed them on to them, to set things right, to end the curse of Mobius. The group then sets their goal to defeat the leader of Mobius, Zed. Gondor then appears and hands them back the key to the Cloud Keep, as they now all realize who the true adversary is. Before they head off to the Cloud Keep, Mio shares another memory of M, where the Queen of Agnes entrusted M with the key to the Cloud Keep. The Queen of Agnes went to sleep to avoid Zed's influence and entrusted M with the key, because she knew that one day M and N would meet their true selves. then gave Gondor the key to the Cloud Keep and asked the city to give assistance to Noah's group, calling them their last hope. However, Mio tells the group that first, they need to go to Colony Omega. Mio's best friend, Miyabi, is still somehow alive at Colony Omega, so the group makes it their top priority. We then cut back to the theater where Instils appears to be healing from his wounds. We as X, Y, and Z all look upon and question what to do next. Zed says that they should acknowledge it and move on, saying it is all part of the flow. X and Y, however, set out to try to stop Ouroboros, and both head out. After traveling a bit, Mio reveals that all she knows about Colony Omega. 5 years ago, Mio, Senna, and Miyabi, alongside other soldiers, all got transferred to Colony Omega with no reason given. The colony, oddly, didn't fight against other colonies, and rather, they were all subject to daily examinations. But one day, an accident occurred, killing most of the members of the colony. Miyabi, however, in a heroic act, saves both Mio and Senna's lives, sacrificing herself for both of them. She then asks Mio to live life in her stead and gives her off-seer flute. She then ejects the group through the escape pod with her dying breath. However, Mobius White has revived the colony, but it is unknown what he experiments on there. Not even M was briefed on the colony. The group then realizes that the violet flame cloth that was found on Ethel and Camaravi's Pharaoneses is also the color of Colony Omega's flame cloth. The group then recommits to saving the colony, Mio vowing to do the saving this time. Upon making it to the colony, they engage onto Camaravi, Hocht, and Wamba, but oddly, they all look like they did before they died, meaning that they couldn't have been reborn. Suddenly, they see Miyabi playing the off-seer tune alongside Consul Y. Y reveals that now he has been able to make soldiers without having them go through rebirth, and take away their memories and feelings, making them only to fight. Consul Y also reveals that he can make flame cloths, so they find out he made both Ethel and Camaravi's flame cloths. The group attempts to attack, but their competition is stiffer than last time. The group realizes that Miyabi's off-seer tune has something to do with it, and then Y reveals that they are fighting against hollow people with no wills, who only fight due to Miyabi's off-seer tune. But, in another act of overzealousness, Y should not have revealed this information, as Noah then recalls something Chris told him. He tells Noah that the notes don't matter in off-seer's tune, the feelings behind the notes matter. This then gives them the brilliant idea to play their own off-seer's melody to counteract Miyabi's. Suddenly, as they play the tune, the soldiers begin to collapse, and Mio is able to get a connection with Miyabi. This frees her from Mobius' control, forcing Consul Y to fight the group. But once again, Mobius is no match for Noah's group, as they are able to break Colony Omega's flame cloth. Y is able to escape, but they were able to free the colony as a result. Mio, Senna, and Miyabi are then able to reunite, with Mio thanking Miyabi for all she has done for her. The group then sets off for the Cloud Keep. They reveal the Cloud Keep, which was invisible, using the key Gondor gave them. They then make it to the throne room, finding the Queen of Agnes sleeping peacefully. However, things have been going a little too smoothly lately, and I feel like something bad is about to... Turns out, Mobius D and J have been stalking the group, and they just threw a shot of light right through the Queen of Agnes' heart, killing her. Lance then asks Yorn why he sacrificed himself for him. Yorn responds that he had been useless throughout all of the past lives he had lived, and that's why he became Mobius, to become useful. Noah's group then engage on them and are able to subdue Mobius D. This allows them to have some time to talk with Yorn. Yorn then laments about how he is powerless, how he only wanted their approval. Noah then fires back, saying that Yorn is only lying to himself. The only reason they seem so powerful is because they had no choice. They have to be, to change the world. Lance then says that Yorn taught him he didn't have to fight, that he could choose who he wanted to be, and that he's forever grateful to him. They then say that he is more than a Mobius, more than a weakling, and this is able to change his mind. Unfortunately, D has stopped being subdued, and forcefully interlinks with Yorn. Mobius D turns out to be Black Blaze Dirk, an Agnian soldier who had gone mad, beheading people with his blades, and then after doing so, adds them to his collection. But he's losing the battle pretty heavily, and blames it on Yorn, who is not giving his strength in the Interlink, and asks him to give his strength. This backfires on D as Yorn then takes control of the Interlink, and although it initially gives D more strength, he suddenly realizes that Yorn is trying to trigger an annihilation event, which would kill both D and Yorn. Yorn then walks back to the edge of the Cloud Keep before hurling them off the edge. Yorn then is able to meet with Noah, Uni, and Lance one final time. Lance is finally able to apologize to him, and the two vow to win the next time they meet each other. They then go back to meet the Queen of Agnes, who is dead, and ponder what they have to do next. Suddenly, the Queen awakes, and although in pain, she is alive, shocking the group. She then welcomes the group, introducing herself as Nia, the Queen of Agnes, and one wing of Ionios. Chapter 7. Time moves again. Hey, before we start this chapter, I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm going to be referring to the queens as their actual names from now on, so the Queen of Agnes is Nia, and the Queen of Kevis is Melia. So just remember, Kevis, Melia, Agnes, Nia. Alright, back into the story. Nia begins telling Noah's group the story of how Ionios came to be. In the beginning, two worlds broke away from each other, with neither knowing of each other after they broke away. However, both yearned to come back together, although it would signal certain destruction of both worlds once they collided. To avoid certain destruction, they built a device called Origin, with its language being written in light. This would allow the worlds to reboot after the collision, but tragically, once the worlds collided, time stopped. Mobius's will had gotten time to stop and froze the worlds before the reboot process could initiate. Zed then captured Melia, allowing him to bend Origin's will to his own will. This allowed him to control the world, and due to this, he is able to live on for eternity. Nia, however, was able to harness some of the power of Origin and create Ouroboros. Although Ouroboros' power is limited, Noah's Sword of the End has thrown a wrench in Mobius's unceasing power, and he is able to bend the fabric of the world to his will in some cases. Nia then tells the group that they need to free the Kavesi Queen and destroy Origin if they are able to have a future in front of them. Origin is located in the Great Sea, in a large vortex that rips ships apart the moment they get too close. The group asks if Nia knows a way in, but unfortunately, she doesn't. This bewilders the group, as now they have to figure out how they're going to get into Origin. They consider using Mio's Mobius powers, but Mio reveals that they've been stripped from her, right after they freed Agnes Castle. Nia suspects that Zed did this, but also reveals that Zed cannot control Ouroboros' powers, as they are outside his control. Noah then remembers that Mr. Samon, the nobleman who built the ship that got Noah's group to the Agnian Castle jail, had blueprints to create the ultimate vessel. The group then realizes that this might be their ticket into getting into Origin and runs off to see him, somewhat ditching Nia, but not before Noah and Mio get their thanks. They talk to Samon about the ship, but he reveals that although the hull is built, the engine is not built yet and it requires 7 core components. Samon only has 1, but the group realizes that it's just like the metal on the Lucky 7. The 6 other core components are scattered throughout Ionios, so Noah's group commits to finding them so Samon can build the engine. Lucky for them, the first one is located right at the Cloud Keep, so they head there first. The group revisits Nia and tells her the situation. She gladly gives the core component to the group, but then realizes that the group has no plan of action to get into Origin. Upon seeing this, she shows the group the early blueprint of Origin and tells them that the Origin has one weak point where there is no shield. If they go through that weak point, they can disable the vortex around it that prevents any normal vessel from accessing it, which would then allow them entry. The group is able to find 4 other core components, but finds out that the last core component is found right in the heart of Kevis Castle. Upon arriving, Noah's group notes that there are no soldiers stationed at the castle. Noah then begins to hear a Kavesi tune and realizes that his old mentor, Chris, is playing the tune. They soon realize that Chris is turned into Mobius and that he's waiting for Noah. Upon reaching the throne room, they encounter both Chris and the fake Melia. She attempts to attack the group, but Chris knocks her out of commission and challenges them to a fight himself. After scuffling with Chris for a bit, Noah asks why Chris became Mobius. He responds saying that he wanted to see Noah again, and asks what would happen if destroying Mobius, destroying the world, doesn't go the way they planned. Noah responds to this by saying that a world without choice is wrong, and that even if they have a slim chance of changing it, he wants to try it, because he wants to look back at his life and be good with what happened. Chris challenges them to a fight again, asking them to show their conviction. After defeating him, Chris states that Zed made J, M, and himself into Mobius. He then reveals that he knows everything from Origin, to the city, to Ouroboros. He says that the city is the hope, the future created by Ouroboros' will. Noah then off-sees Chris and he tells the group to sing their song for all to hear before disappearing into the ether. Chris entrusted his wishes to Noah, and now Noah wants to make sure his wishes come true. After doing this, they find the last core component and Samon builds the ship. While waiting, Noah's group discusses life after death. Mobius, unlike humans, cannot be reborn after dying. The group then commits to walking towards the future that they want and board the ultimate vessel. The city is accompanying the group, trying to draw fire so Noah's group doesn't get sunk. Realizing that they're coming for him, Zed unveils Origin, and using Origin begins taking potshots at Noah's group and for some reason, colonies that are still under the flame cloak. Noah's group then realizes that Zed is trying to power up, since they can just remake everyone that they kill. Unfortunately, potshots aren't good at hitting small targets, as Noah is able to drive the ship through the vortex and destroy the object that is causing the vortex within Origin. Using his sword, Noah is able to find the general location of Melia, and so the group goes even further within Origin to free her. Once they are able to find her, however, they also find In guarding her. Noah realizes that In is drowning in sorrow, and that is driving his actions. So while they engage in the scuffle, Noah tries to once again get through to In. He asks him why he slaughtered the city's people, to which In responds that he held dominion over their lives. However, as he begins to say this, he begins to break down in tears. Noah and Mio try to tell In that he has become regret, and they tell him that Im also had regret, which is why she left everything to Mio, so that they can make things right. Unfortunately, just like before, they can't get through to him, but finally, thanks to Mio, they are able to get through to him. She tells him that Im wanted to go back to the name Noah. and to not be Mobius anymore. Noah then says that if he was in In's shoes, he likely would have chosen the same, to save Mio, but thanks to his friends, he's walking down the path that M and N originally wanted to go on. Mio then reiterates that In's choice was not necessarily the wrong one, and that he had his reasons to choose what he did. This convinces In to walk towards the future again as he fuses with Noah, making Noah become part Mobius, just like Mio. They then free Melia, freeing her from Origin. She reveals that Zed is not a person, but rather a concept, feelings like anxiousness personified into a person. The hopes and feelings of those who are stuck within Origin are personified into the Sword of the End in Ouroboros. She says that the world is in Noah's group's hands, and then before leaving to free the castle, nods to Riku, and then leaves. Before they meet with Zed, Monica and Gondor tag along for one last ride to help the group. They then meet with Zed, who reveals that this whole time, Mobius has been watching their lives for entertainment, which explains why Chris and Yorn remain to Mobius. They then engage onto Zed, who after defeating him turns into his true form. This allows both Nia and Melia to attack the core of Origin to help out Noah's group in the fight, and in the process, uniting Agnes and Kevis. With their help, they're finally able to defeat Zed. But suddenly, In and M appear and sacrifice themselves to punch the final blow to Zed, allowing Noah and Mio instead to make the future, not In and M. After this, we're taken to a hill which contains Noah's group, alongside Nia and Melia. Nia and Melia ask if they want to create a new world or stay where they are. Noah initially hesitates, but when he realizes that this is what all of them want, he decides to create a new world. We then are taken to Noah looking at his sword on top of the Kavesi Furanis. After pondering for a moment, he then throws the sword off the edge into the deep sea. We're then taken back to the same hill as before the worlds part again, our group says their final goodbyes. Lance and Senna vow to keep training, although each of them isn't there to keep them in check. Tyon gives Uni a handbook on how to make tea, to which Uni responds that he's her fourth best friend. Noah and Mio then vow to always stay together, to always be there with each other, even if not physically. They then make true on the foreshadowing we saw earlier in the game and kiss for one final time. Nia and Melia then share that they believe that although they're separating now, they believe that the worlds will walk hand in hand again one day. The worlds then begin to pull apart as Noah's group says their final goodbyes, vowing to visit each other once again one day. And then Staff. But wait, there's more! It's a post-credits cutscene! We're taken back to the cutscene we saw at the beginning of the game, except for this time, the worlds don't collide, and Noah wakes up from time appearing to be stopped. As Uni, Lance, and Yorn run towards the castle for the celebration, Noah hears the Agni and Offseer's tune, and he begins to walk towards the alleyway in which he heard it. And as the doves fly by, the game officially ends. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you found this video informative and enjoyable. But if you have any critiques about this video, I would really appreciate it if you left them in the comments section below. I try to make this channel better with each video that comes out, and your critiques could really help this channel become even better than it is now. This video took about 4 weeks to make, which was a lot longer than expected when I originally set out to make this video, but I'm happy with the end result. So I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, because more Xenoblade content is on the way. I really enjoyed Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I'm very inspired to make content about the game, so maybe this channel's for you. But with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching once again, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.